In the heat of anger, what was the worst decision you've made? What were the consequences? How I faked being sick and lost my appendix. When I was 19, I worked at a summer camp supervising a group of counselors. There was this event coming up that I really wanted to attend, so I asked my boss for the day off. Nope, he said no way. So, naturally, I called in sick. But I knew I needed a doctor's note to cover my ass, so the next day I went to the doctor. My regular doc wasn't in, so I got a nurse practitioner filling in. She poked and prodded my stomach, and I probably overacted a bit to sell the sickness. Then she says, "You might have appendicitis. Go to the ER. Score, better note incoming, right?" So I'm at the ER, whole family in tow. They make me drink these awful barium milkshakes, 4 of them over an hour, to prep for imaging. I'm on my last shake when the ER doc says a surgeon's coming in. I'm chill because I assume they'll just take pictures, find nothing, and send me home. But no. Surgeon walks in, sees I'm in pain, thanks, acting skills, and says forget the pictures, we're going straight to surgery. Fast forward 10 years, I'm appendix-free and have never told my family I totally faked the whole thing just to get a day off. That time I accidentally punched a cop in the nose. So this happened when I was 18, just a broke college kid having an absolutely horrible day. I was walking home when I noticed some creepy dude following me for like 4 blocks. Super sketchy. Suddenly, I feel a heavy hand on my shoulder. I thought it was the creeper, so instinct kicked in and I punched. Only later did I find out. I punched a cop in the nose. Broke it, actually. The cop's partner immediately pulled his gun on me, screaming to put my hands up. I had to explain the whole messed up mix-up, that I thought the cop was the creepy guy. Turns out, the cop had actually been about to ask me if I noticed my wallet was slipping out of my pocket. Classic. But get this, the cop with the broken nose just laughed it off and said, "I'll let this go if you buy me the burgers I was on my way to get." His grin? Comedy gold. So yeah, I ended up buying burgers for the whole department. For a broke college student, that $250 plus burger tab stung hard. My parents don't know, and probably never will. Thank Odin or whatever deity you believe in, because that story could have gone way worse. My dad used to have a serious drinking problem. One night when I was in high school, I was driving home from work in our small town. I ended up behind a truck that I was pretty sure was my dad's. Now, my headlights were messed up, so I was driving with my brights on. Suddenly, he slows down and stops completely at a curve where I couldn't pass him. I was confused. He got out of his truck and started yelling at me from across the road, calling me all kinds of names. Then, he grabbed a Frosty from Wendy's and threw it at my car. It hit the hood so hard it left a dent. I was terrified. He'd gotten mad like that before, but this time it felt different. His eyes were full of rage as he walked toward my car. I was so shaken I couldn't even cry. It turned out he'd argued with someone in the Wendy's parking lot, a guy with a car that looked like mine. Since my brights were on, he couldn't tell it was me, and he was probably drunk. When he got to my door, I think he meant to grab that other guy, but when he saw it was me, he just froze, then got back in his truck and drove away. When I got home, he went to his room, packed a bag, and left to stay in a hotel and get help. He couldn't even look me or my mom in the eye. This isn't my story, but my brother's. Hope that's cool, because it's pretty entertaining. So, my brother's a total rage monster when he plays first-person shooters on Xbox. Over the years, he's destroyed about 5 or 6 official Xbox 360 controllers, none of that cheap knockoff stuff, and those things aren't cheap, like $50 to $60 each. One night, during a particularly intense gaming session, he was this close to smashing yet another controller. His hand was raised high, ready to crush it on the floor. But then, for a split second, a tiny voice in his head said, "Hey, maybe don't break this one, it'll cost you another $60. But rage is rage. He couldn't stop the motion, he just altered the target. Instead of the floor, the controller came crashing down, right onto the couch. And here's the kicker, he'd left his brand new iPhone on the couch earlier, totally forgetting it was there until the controller smashed right onto it. Cue full-on meltdown. His thoughts? Something like, I was trying not to break the controller. How the hell did fate screw me like this? Obviously, the only logical next step was to kick the 50-inch projection TV as hard as he could. His foot went right through the screen. Then he got blackout drunk, and the next morning he woke up to a destroyed living room, shattered iPhone, ruined TV, and vomit inside the TV hole. He vaguely remembers laughing while puking in the TV. Oh, and the Xbox controller? Completely fine. Oh, and he was about 30 at the time, and yeah, we're roommates. When I was about 13 or 14, my sister and I were stuck doing the dishes after dinner. She was 12 and drying, I was washing, and our mom and her boyfriend had just stepped out to the shops to grab stuff for school lunches the next day. With no parents around, you know how it goes, rowdy teenagers will find any excuse to have some fun, especially to dodge chores. So there I was, washing up, when I accidentally splashed water on my sister. She jumped, dropped the fork she was drying, and wouldn't you know it, it landed right on my foot. Naturally, I picked up the fork and poked her with it. She grabbed another fork and threw it playfully at me, then ran off. Boom, a full-blown fork war erupted. For 5 minutes, we threw forks back and forth down the hallway, ducking behind alcoves and the fridge to dodge the missiles. Eventually, I got crafty, I started faking throws to mess with her head. She got cocky and just stood there, thinking I wouldn't actually throw one. Big mistake. I hurled the fork at her feet to scare her. It bounced off the floor, ricocheted, and stabbed her right in the shin, perfectly vertical, right over her shin bone. It stuck there for about 10 seconds while she stood frozen, shocked, looking down at the fork lodged in her leg. The moment she moved, it popped out and blood started dripping. Just then, we heard car doors close. Mom was home. Ass whooping imminent. She walked in, saw my sister bleeding, and immediately started firing off 100 questions. I was sweating bullets, ready for it. But to my surprise, my sister made up a brilliant story on the spot. She claimed she'd dropped the fork while drying, tried to catch it by pressing her leg against the cupboard, and accidentally stabbed herself. Mom bought it. I stayed silent, finished the dishes, wiped up the blood, and dodged a beating. My younger brother had a seriously troubled teen phase, full of anger and violence. He and our older brother believed fights solved everything, but I was never a fighter. One night, I got a call from my mom. My brother and his friend were at her house, drunk and tormenting her. He had hit her and thrown her down the stairs. She managed to get him out, but he and his friend tried to break the door down to get back in. The police showed up with 5 cars and a K9 unit. The street was lit up in red and blue lights by the time I arrived. My brother and his friend ran into the nearby park. The dog unit hunted them while I stayed with my mom. Eventually, the cops found them hiding in a bush and cuffed them. He was supposed to work all weekend, but if locked up, it would be until Monday at best. I convinced the lead officer I could handle my brother while he was drunk and pleaded to let him stay at my place instead of jail. Mom agreed tearfully, and the officer gave me his number, telling me to call if things went south. At first, it was calm walking back to my place. Then my brother started slurring insults, telling me he hated me, blamed me for everything, and insulted my sexuality. I decided I didn't want him at my place. I reached for my phone to call the cop and have him picked up, but just then, my brother threw a punch. I dodged and hit him in the side of the head with my phone, smashing it. He almost lost balance, but then I punched him again. All the rage I had built up, how he hurt Mom, his words, came flooding out. I kicked and punched him repeatedly, wearing heavy boots. Then I sat on him, pinned him down, and gave him one final punch. His head flopped back, eyes rolled, and blood pooled beneath him. I thought I had killed my brother. I'd smashed my phone and it was 2 a.m., no way to call for help. I couldn't yell, no one was around. So I did the scariest thing I've ever done. I put my coat under his head, left him in the pouring rain, and ran back home. I burst in, told my friends to call an ambulance, then ran back to him. He was still unconscious but breathing. A friend arrived to help keep him warm. The cop showed up too, saying my brother probably wouldn't remember what happened and that it wouldn't go in the report. I rode with him to the hospital and waited for 8 hours for him to wake up. When he finally did and could see visitors, I apologized, expecting anger or hatred. Instead, he broke down crying, begging for forgiveness and apologizing for being a terrible brother. That night marked the end of his troubled teen years. He walked away with a broken nose, half an ear missing, a fractured cheekbone, and a hairline skull fracture. He was off work for a month, with Mom refusing to speak to him. Mom and brother didn't talk for 18 months until he had her first grandchild, which healed the family. We came through the other side stronger, but I will never forget the horror of thinking I had killed my brother. That's the hardest decision I've ever made. When my sister and I were much younger, we had our first real argument. She was just old enough to be trusted to walk around the house by herself, and I was about 5 years older. I honestly don't remember what we argued about, but shortly afterward, she came back into the room holding a piece of paper. It was a drawing of the two of us holding hands, with the words "I'm sorry" written on it. Without thinking, I ripped it up right in front of her, threw the pieces on the floor, and left the room. I'm sure she doesn't remember that moment, but it still lingers with me to this day. We get along now as well as siblings can, but I'll never forget the way she started to well up with tears right in front of me. I'm the younger sister, and I always wanted to look up to my older sister, but she seemed to hate me for reasons I couldn't understand. She's 8 years older, so when I was obsessed with Barbies, she was into boys and makeup. I ended up spending more time with my 3 older brothers than with her because honestly, she scared me. When she came back from college, things seemed to improve, but she kept playing manipulative games to get me in trouble with our parents. Things reached a breaking point during a Christmas visit when she and her husband came to pick me up to take me to see my older brother in Chicago. My parents had gotten me a new car since I was working while in school and had to walk through campus after dark. This apparently upset my sister a lot, even though she'd been off my parents' support for years. The drive up was tense, she was nasty the whole way, and even her husband noticed but stayed silent. In Chicago, she accused me of being spoiled, yelled at me for sitting where she wanted, and bossed me around like I was her child. I stayed quiet because I'd learned to keep my mouth shut when people tried to push my buttons. Then, about 3 nights before New Year's, she sat me down and told me I was a terrible person, that no one would ever love me as I was, and that I should change, for her. I said nothing. After she finished, I called my parents and asked them to get me a train ticket home. Within an hour, it was arranged, and I left the next morning without saying goodbye. I haven't spoken to her since. She called me a year ago to say she was expecting, and all I said was, "That's nice," before hanging up. I cannot and will not forgive her. She burned the last bridge between us, and I'm much happier without her in my life. When my cousin was born, I was around 8 years old, and for almost 8 years, I treated him terribly. I don't even know why I hated him so much, he was a great kid. But I had this unexplained rage that made me do small, hurtful things, tripping him, glaring at him when he wasn't looking, or relentlessly destroying him in video games. When he was about 8 and I was about 16, I was watching him. He wanted to go outside and play with a little golf set, but I just wanted to stay inside and play video games. He dragged me out anyway. When it was my turn to swing, I accidentally hit him on the head, by accident, meaning I meant to do it but made it look accidental. He broke down crying, a small cut on his head. I took him inside, cleaned the wound, and coldly said, "It was an accident." Through tears, he looked up at me and said, "It's okay, I know you wouldn't hurt me on purpose." That moment hit me like a ton of bricks. I suddenly realized how shitty I had been to someone who never deserved it. I asked myself, what the hell was I doing? Why was I so angry? After that, the anger just melted away. Since then, we've become like best friends. The last goodbye I never said. I never said goodbye to my mom the last time I saw her. In my head, I even wished she would die. Not because I hated her, but because I was mad. She and my brother were going to Fiji without me, and I had to work. I did not know at the time that her radiation treatment had failed, and she was basically going home to die. I had no clue it had gotten that bad. So, when she came over to hug me, I turned away. She ended up giving me a side hug, that was all she could manage, and she was really weak by then. Thinking about her face that morning, and how her little thin body pressed against me, still makes me feel like the worst person alive. A little later, I want to add something. Thanks to everyone who left kind comments. I did not expect anyone to care about my story. I explained more about it in another reply, but I should say this, my mom probably did not tell me the truth because she was always a very positive person. In the last couple months before she passed, she still talked about her plans for when she got better. She had dreams for her career. She had a degree in psychology but was working with disabled people at a care center. It did not really seem to me like she could die, which made the whole thing even harder to accept. Missing the signs and what came after. There were a few reasons I did not realize my mom was really going to die. First off, I was an 18-year-old punk, totally caught up in my own life. I had just started going to clubs and hanging out with friends, so that's all I cared about back then. Second, I got back from a week-long trip just the day before my mom and brother left for Fiji. I went to Melbourne to see my half-sister for the first time, and the trip went great. I was excited to show my mom the pictures when I got home, but she said she was too tired and would look at them in the morning. What I did not know was that while I was away, her doctor had visited and basically told her she had only about a month left to live. Nobody told me that until after she was gone. No one really told me anything important. My parents were divorced, so my dad did not know much. My brother was only 13, still a kid. Mom's friends thought I did not care, so they never filled me in either. After she died, my best friend told me people were gossiping that I was cold-hearted for leaving town when my mom was dying. They even guessed I did not love her. I was pretty messed up for at least a year, really depressed. I had to go live with my dad and his wife for a while. She took me to see a doctor and helped me a lot. I figured, well, I still have my dad, so I'm going to take care of him and not mess up this time. Looking back, that was kind of a dumb way to think. My stepmom left my dad for work reasons and moved away. After that, my dad started drinking a lot. We drank together too, which was a terrible idea. Later, I went back to school and moved back to the city. Dad did not do well alone. Long story short, he got really sick and broke, ended up in a nursing home because none of his older kids wanted to help. My little brother and I could not afford to care for him. I used to visit him on weekends. He had alcohol-related dementia that got worse over time. The last time I saw him fully awake, he thought my friend who came with me was me, and acted like we were strangers. I was kind of mad. Then, my friend told me later she had slept with my boyfriend. So, I stopped visiting for a couple of months. Dad went to the hospital and died about a week later. The dark days and how I changed. When I was around 14 or 15, I was dealing with a lot of stuff that I now know was depression. I kept fighting with my family and friends because I had no motivation, I felt selfish, and I thought I didn't care about the people close to me. I felt like such a huge failure and got so angry at myself that I tried to kill myself by jumping in front of a car on the highway. The driver stopped and got really mad at me. But right before I hit the ground, the last thing I thought was, no, I want to live. I want to prove I'm not a screw-up. Now, I'm in college. I have a big group of close friends, get along well with my family, and I'm pretty happy with how things are going. That's probably the opposite of what the original poster expected, but things don't always have to end badly. Just to add, yes, I know my way of trying was awful. I'm glad it didn't work out because I wouldn't want the driver to feel guilty. But when I was 15 and suicidal, I just wanted it to stop, and that was the easiest way I could think of. I'm not looking for sympathy or anything. The original poster asked a question, and I'm just answering it. Also, the driver didn't know I was trying to kill myself. She was just mad because she thought I was some careless kid crossing the road without paying attention. I remember her yelling, "Didn't your dumb parents ever tell you to look both ways before crossing, you little idiot?" That moment I crossed the line. I cannot for the life of me remember exactly what the fight with my mom was about, but it was pretty heated. There were lots of cursing, "F you this" and "stupid that." At one point, she tried to push me back a few inches by poking me in the chest so she could close the kitchen door and end the argument. That's when I made what I now see as the biggest "oh no, what did I just do" mistake of my life. I thought, screw this, I'm not done here. So, when she tried to shut the door, I pushed it back hard, wanting to keep arguing. You could tell by her reaction she was really scared by what I did, and suddenly I realized just how much I had upset my mom. I ran straight to my room and stayed there until I heard the front door slam. That was my dad coming home from work. Crunch time. About 15 minutes after he got in, he came upstairs to my room. He spoke calmly but seriously. "You might be my son, but she is my wife. You do not want this to happen again. Do you understand me?" I nodded, and he left. That might not sound intimidating to some people, but at that moment, I seriously thought I was in deep trouble. Looking back now, I just feel ashamed for how I acted. A night of rage and regret. I learned early on that if you break stuff that can be replaced when you are angry, you have to either pay for it or fix it yourself. So, to really get back at my parents, I started going after things that would hurt them more. Don't ask me why I was so angry, that was a long time ago. One night, I was especially mad at my mom. I ripped up her high school graduation pictures and set them on fire. Later, when she was yelling at me, I realized that I hadn't made her as angry as I was. She was upset, but not like me. While she screamed, I figured out I needed to destroy something that was both irreplaceable and mattered to her. So, while I had her full attention, I tried to stab myself to death. The knife wasn't sharp enough, so it didn't work, but I did bleed a lot. I knew the cuts weren't enough to kill me, so I used my blood to draw pentagrams on the walls. My family was very religious, so it scared the hell out of them. That night was insane. Afterward, I ended up in a mental hospital for a week. Just to add, it sucks that this is the worst thing I've ever done, and it's my most popular comment. Yes, I was an idiot and a jerk. No, I'm not ungrateful to my mom, I love her. She put up with a lot of my crap when others wouldn't. She's a little overprotective, but she saved me many times. There's a lot more to the story I didn't share to respect my family. Anyway, this was just my answer to the question. That's it. See you around, but not here. Living with my sister's chaos. I always get glad when I see questions like this because it gives me a chance to talk about my sister. She has always been a wild card, causing trouble wherever she goes. She constantly plays the victim and acts like the world owes her everything. So one day, she called my mom and said that the place she was staying was a cult. Weird, right? But we did not ask many questions, that was a mistake. She also said she was sexually abused by someone and that this person was following her. Who would tell anyone that was not true? Then she claimed some weird government agency was watching her. Yeah, it sounds crazy. After all this, my mom said she could stay with us temporarily. My sister promised it would only be for 2 weeks. For context, my mom and I lived in a small apartment with only 5 rooms, a kitchen, a tiny 10 by 10 foot area, a bathroom, my room, which was also the living room, and my mom's room. So we basically had no extra space. Plus, my mom was broke, just barely able to cover rent and food, even with me helping sometimes. But she is family, so I did not mind sharing my room with my sister for those 2 weeks. As soon as she got here, she said she had no money but wanted a job that meant driving on the turnpike to a big city. So, my mom gave her the change jar just for tolls, about $5 a day. My sister ended up using 80% of that jar in a month. She spent it on gas, bills, food, anything. It was a crappy thing to do, but nothing to call the police over. Then she said, I still have not found a place to live. I need 2 more weeks. Fine, but she needed to start helping with the bills. She freaked out, saying the whole family hated her. Maybe she was just being dramatic. Mom let her off the hook with bills until she was more stable. Then my stepdad died unexpectedly. My sister did not even like him. So she acted like it did not matter. Mom was obviously heartbroken. Her best friend died. 2 days after he passed, my sister went into Mom's room and said, "Mom, you should go to a mental hospital. You are having a psychotic break." Excuse me? Mom had been crying since she heard the news. Who would not? Then my sister invited her kids, a 12-year-old daughter and a 9-year-old son, to live with us. Where were we supposed to put them? Who was going to pay for them? She did not even ask. After that, my sister posted something on Instagram with a sexual joke. I, being the youngest, commented LOLEW, like I always do when my siblings make sex jokes. It is kind of a fun thing between us to lighten the mood. But she started acting nasty, saying my niece and nephew hated being here because of me, that they did not like me, and that I was making Mom's life hard. All because of my comment. Eventually, things got crazy. My sister screamed and fought with my mom, saying awful things, refusing to leave, hitting and throwing things, threatening to kill herself, claiming everyone hated her, and blaming my mom for her hard life. It was all too much to write here. Finally, Mom said she had been here for 2 months, did not help with bills, and needed to leave. My sister refused. She called the cops, saying we were illegally trying to kick her out. What? In the end, Mom told the landlord she could not stay because of my stepdad's death. We packed up and left. I do not know where my sister went after that, and I have not talked to her since. She still says the family hates her because of me and Mom. She says we did not help her, that the house fell apart because of me, and that we do not love her. She says a lot of things. She is the worst person I have ever known. To clear some things up, Mom has been a psychiatric nurse for over 40 years and thinks my sister has borderline personality disorder. My sister refuses treatment. Mom got her to try therapy 3 times, but she left, saying the therapist tried to make her look crazy. My stepdad died in July from a heart attack. He lived a few states away and had moved to be with his adult kids who were struggling with drugs and poverty. He was supposed to move back with us in August. I do not talk to my sister anymore. Mom and I have a strong bond. I would not trade her for the world. My sister believed the place she was living was a cult because they tried to make her go to church on Sundays. When we told her that does not make them a cult, she freaked out, saying we did not care and had not been there with her. She shut down the conversation. We never got answers about the government stalking. She would babble until no one understood her story.